Hi, I'm Ken White. I'm the lead pastor of Forest Park Covenant Church, and we're here in our typical podcast on mission with Forest Park Covenant Church, and I'm here with two just great people, Bob Johnson and Lisa Wright, who I've gotten to know in the last few years, and they have such interesting and compelling stories that we just thought we would have a conversation together and hear what God is doing in their lives. And so first thing I will just have you guys do is maybe just like I did in introduction, I'm just going to ask each of you if you would just introduce yourself a little bit relative to Forest Park. So I'll start with Bob. Bob, what's your history with Forest Park Covenant Church?
Well, I started in 1978 at the church when it was downtown on Muskegon Avenue, and I was hired as the part-time minister of music.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, so I led the choir and led the song service and those types of things, and had other part-time jobs, and it eventually the year after that led into also working with youth. So I was minister of youth and music, and at that time is when I first met my future wife, Lisa.
Yeah. Okay. How long did you do that for?
I left in 1980.
Okay.
So it was 3 years.
Yeah. 78 was when I graduated from high school, so we were around in the same time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you grow up in Muskegon?
Yes, I was in North Muskegon.
Okay. So you're a Norseman.
I am.
All right. That's great. Great to hear.
Go Norse.
And so, Lisa, you've also grown up in Muskegon,
I did.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your history at Forest Park.
My Forest Park history goes back all the way to the old church downtown. I was one of the babies in the cradle roll, they called it back then. So I'm a lifer.
In the what? The cradle?
It was called the cradle roll.
The cradle roll.
That was the roster of the babies.
Oh, I see. Like
Yeah.
a roll call.
Well, yeah.
Okay. I thought you were like in the nursery and they were just rolling you around on the nursery floor. Okay. Wow. So you started your whole life.
I go
this
way
way.
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were in the youth group with Bob when Bob was the leader.
I was one of his youth.
Yes. Okay.
So I was one of those he was supposed to try and wrangle.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
She's a few years younger than I am.
Okay.
one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Norton Shores,
Oh, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you start? What year did you graduate from high school?
81,
Okay. Just a little bit younger than me.
a little bit.
Yeah. So then we're just going to fast forward. How did you guys meet, and how long have you guys been married now?
Well, we met 40 years ago.
40 years ago, that's right.
But we've been married going on it'll be 4 years in June.
Okay.
So life, as it does, took us in
Yeah.
our own ways. I came back here 5 years ago, about. I was doing a trip with my daughters because I lived in California for about 20 years, Chicago for 10 years. So I've been gone.
Okay.
So I just was coming back to visit Dad, and I was sitting in church, and the pastor at the time said hey, turn and greet your neighbor. And, usually it's the people around you. Maybe you get bold and go on a diagonal or something, but this very tall man up in the choir spotted me out there and came running down from the choir.
Wow.
And, it shocked me because we had no contact
Yeah.
at all from high school, really. I mean, that was it.
Did you recognize that he was up in the? That was him up in the
He's
choir?
hard not to recognize, yeah. But he came down and he leaned over the pew and said hello, and I just thought that was really nice that that he would make that gesture.
Yeah.
And we started talking from there, and
Yeah.
here we are.
And Bob, you were in and out of Muskegon. I know for just a couple years you went to Chicago and worked with the Jesus people, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was
Correct.
your experience there?
Well, it was the next day that I left for Jesus People
I see.
after that service. Moved to Chicago, sold my house, and went to minister there, and really was enjoying it, and worked in a 10-story building with those that are in need of assistance, and I helped refurbish rooms for new people to come in and stay there.
Yeah. And how was that experience for you?
It was, how would I say, life-changing in some ways. I grew a lot as a Christian. I saw a lot of a different lifestyle of people, and working with people that I didn't know, it was a whole new experience.
Yeah.
And so I lived there. I could almost stretch my arms out, and that was the room I lived in.
Yeah.
And going from a house to one room and a bathroom was quite an experience.
Yeah. When I was in seminary in Chicago, I visited the Jesus People, their church service. It has an astounding impact in the city and has a great reputation. And so you did that for about a year or so, and then you came back here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you just happened to be here, or how did you guys kind of reconnect then?
Well, to be honest, when I saw Bob at church that time, he was kind of at a low point, and I had kind of gotten through the divorce, and was just reaching out to him to say, you're going to get through it. It's going to be okay, that kind of thing. Trying to encourage him, I guess,
Yes.
with no dating intentions. I mean, it was Bob from, it was our youth leader. And he's probably thinking, she's a hot mess. So, I mean, that intention wasn't there. But we just started talking, and all of a sudden, I had planned on coming back because my dad is here. And he's just such a big part of my heart. And Dad and Doris.
Yes.
Definitely Dad and Doris. And I wasn't here when my mom was very ill, and I was here when she passed, but not the time leading up. And I was in a position where I could come back and spend some time with my dad, and that was very important to me.
Yeah.
Just for a number of reasons. And my girls were very encouraging. Go home, Mom, go be with him. They were at a place with school and life that I could do that. And so this was my plan. And my daughter was going to ride with me, and circumstances she couldn't. And we had been talking, and he said, well, I'll fly out and help you drive home. So our first date was a cross-country road trip.
Yes. It's the longest date in history, I must say. Very, very smooth.
It was a week long.
That's great.
We went to all national parks, and it was just a really great trip.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was kind of a dating intensive.
And so how soon after that were you guys married?
The following summer, June.
Okay.
Yeah, that trip was in October, September, October,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the following
wonderful.
June.
I think you know this, but the first people that I met coming into the church on a particular Sunday morning, it was like one of my first Sundays, was Dale and Doris. And so I've known them since pretty much the first day I've been here. And I know that one of the things that you guys are very intent on is caring for them. And I just wondered how that's going, and what are some of the opportunities that you find there in caring for Dale and Doris?
It's wonderful. I can't think of a better situation than we have. Where we landed in our home, there happened to be another home next to us that came up for sale, and we bought it and refurbished it with the intention of being a space for someone who needed a little bit of help, maybe coming out of the hospital or a skilled nursing or something like that. And
Yes.
so we outfitted it for ADA and just made it accessible. And as we were creating this space, Doris would kind of look at it and, but they never would leave their house. But the more they watched it, they said, well, we'll come try it for a few days. That was last March.
Yes.
So
It's
it's been almost, it has been a year. This is March. That's right.
So it's in a lot next to your house. Is that what you're saying?
It is. It's a separate standalone bungalow where they can be pretty much independent.
Yes.
I am here, so we do driving for them, so they have chauffeurs now. I just wanted to be able to care for them, and I don't know if part of it was that I wasn't here for Mom, and there's part of my heart just, I missed that.
Yeah.
And I have the opportunity now, so I really wanted to take it. And not all husbands would be on board with that, but Bob has been amazing with that. He fills so many roles over there.
Yeah. What are the roles that you fill over there?
Well, I am retired, but I am now re-employed. I'm the chauffeur a lot of times. And overnight,
Do you wear one of those hats, one of those chauffeur hats?
I got one for Christmas. Yes. I also am maintenance, garbage takeout and return, and also what else do I do?
Occasional caregiver.
Caregiver overnight if needed. Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys have meals together? Any
Yeah.
meals? Few meals?
At least usually once a week at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes. The nice thing is we can either get them to church, or if they don't feel like they can get out of the house, we'll be in the living room
Yes.
watching online together, and they're singing away, and they'll get up and get dressed for church. I mean, the nylons go on, the church shoes go on.
Not me.
They're no, but
That would be a sight, though.
yeah. So they're not sitting around in their pajamas watching online. They're up and ready for church. It just
No,
happens.
no
to be
judgment to you who are watching this in your pajamas right now. But go
Because
ahead.
when I'm home by myself, I'm in my pajamas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But over there, we're dressed.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's really sweet, and I can go to all their doctor's appointments with them. And
Yeah. They're in their mid-90s, I want to say.
Dad's
94,
93 and
93.
Doris is 94.
Okay. Low 90s then. So are you, what are you finding happening inside of you as you're taking care of your parents?
So many emotions. So many emotions. And we've had the conversations that at this point in life, we are approaching end of life, and
Yes.
we do have those conversations. And they're tough, and they're beautiful, and they're reassuring, and all the things that go along with having parents who are solid in their Christian faith.
Yeah.
It's, of course, I will miss them so much, but I sit and I listen to them, and there's just no doubt in my mind what their spiritual life is and where they're going. And
Yes.
I've known Doris for 10 years, 11 years. Obviously, Dad, my whole life, and he's just never shown me anything other than just a good man,
Yes.
man with a heart for God. And he showed me, I took him into the old church, I went into the old church, and he talked to me about the pew where he was sitting when he accepted Jesus.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, wow, I walked in there and I saw it, and it's like,
Yes. This is the old Mission Covenant Church that you were in the cradle roll part of. Or was
yeah,
it a-
cradle
yeah,
roll, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Not the real old one, because she's not old enough for that.
Yeah, Bob might have gone there had he been.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've got the great Swedish name there, the Johnson name.
that's right.
So, and this is just a side note. There were a few Bob Johnsons in our church. There was the Red Bob. There was
Bob.
Square Bob.
And Tall Bob.
And Tall Bob. Yes. Never to be mistaken by other people. But, yeah. Well, you said this thing. Some of them they're hard conversations. I've just found that when I start talking with people about end-of-life things, oftentimes it might be in a hospital room. They might invite me over, and we'll start talking about it. It just really depends on where that conversation is going to go. But it's a limited experience, because as a pastor, you're really kind of coming in. You may be there for an hour or two, but I would imagine it's very different for a family. And so one of the questions I had is like, what's been sort of a challenge in that kind of a discussion? How does it make you feel? And what's been a joy in that? If that question makes any sense to you.
I guess a challenge is balancing my emotions. I don't want him to feel like I'm trying to hold on desperately to him being here. but I also don't want it to look like, hey, do your thing, if you're gonna go, that sounds so harsh. That's what the balance
Right.
is. I'm reassured, and he's had a great life, and he's been a great dad, and so I don't think there are any regrets for him.
Right.
So I don't feel sad about that. I feel sad that he won't be there. The little jokes won't be there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just find that both Dale and Doris are, sort of terminally upbeat. They're just, when you're with them, they make you happy to be with them. And so, having that or losing a person is really, it can be a real challenge. And at the same time, talking with people about it is really important. And I think that, what you're doing is just so powerful and incredible. And I wonder how you feel about that too, Bob. What has been your experience? Because these are, let me just rephrase. Your parents, where are your parents now? Have they passed away, or are they okay?
I, at 6 months, was adopted.
Oh, you were, okay.
Yeah, so all of my parents have passed away now. And so I a lot of times will ask as I'm walking over to the house or doing something, I'll say, what is my role? What has been helpful? And I think that I have found that I'm in a supportive role of being an encourager, and both to Lisa and to Dale and Doris. And so I feel like, am I really, 4 or 5 years ago when I retired, I never thought I'd be in this situation. But I have appreciated it and embraced it, I think, to support them and love them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that you do to support and love us as a church is to work with our children. And it's just an interesting age range. You're doing this ministry with your in-laws, and you're doing ministry with these young kids. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to shift a little bit to the young children. Why do you do that? Why did you decide I want to work with kids? Because I've watched them. They just love you, and it's really clear that you love doing it. But you want to talk a little bit about that?
So you want me to put my Mr. Bob hat on?
Put your Mr. Bob hat on.
Yes. The thread goes back eons in youth in the 70s and even before that. I've found that God has been present throughout my life to be someone who puts a smile on somebody's face. I try to do that every day. And so it's real easy to do with children. A lot of them affirmed to me at Christmas time that I was silly, and that's cool. That they appreciate my silliness and being able to have them laugh and be comfortable around me, so that when I speak and hopefully speak God's word into them, that they will embrace that and enjoy the times we have together.
Yeah. Are you working with a specific second and third graders?
Kindergartners and first grade.
Oh.
With Becky. Yeah.
With Becky Galkowski.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Have you worked with children before this time? Other than that small, I know you worked with youth.
We had a children's church way back in the day, and we would go down the basement, similar to what we do today, and we'd have that time with them. So yeah, throughout time, yeah. And family members as they were growing up, I'd have fun with. I don't have any grandchildren right now, but I feel like I'm still blessed with a lot of grandchildren of sorts.
Yeah, that's great.
They were his birthday party. This was really fun.
2 years.
2 years ago?
Right before the COVID.
It was before COVID. I didn't know what to do for a birthday party for him, so we got a bunch of the preschoolers and kindergartners together from here, and they all were down at the beach.
Oh.
waiting for him.
Yes.
And he came over the dune, and
Yeah.
there was this flock of just, Mr. Bob! And, you know, and
That's
they came
awesome.
running to
Oh, we had
him,
a
and
lot of fun.
it was really fun.
Yeah, did you have a cake too?
We got donuts,
Oh,
didn't
donuts. That's the best. That's the best. And just again, kind of shifting a little bit of gears. Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing work-wise? It's just a really fascinating thing that you're doing right now in the community.
I am working at the Hope Project,
Okay.
which cares for the survivors of sex trafficking. And we bring education. I work in the counseling arena of that. There's a clinical department, and we provide therapy for the girls and the women. The ones that we serve are ages 11 and up, and you would. I think the feeling is that that's not around here, and very sadly, it is. I have files and files and files of local girls and women
Yeah.
that it affects. The younger ones, they may be part of the vulnerable youth aspect, so not everyone from 11 to 18 has been trafficked, but they may have been, and some of them have been that I work with, but some of them are just highly vulnerable, whether they're bouncing around the foster care system, or they have abuse at home, some kind of physical abuse, some kind of lack, or if there's substance abuse within the home, they're vulnerable. There are all kinds of ways that people get trafficked that you don't really think of. You think of the classic, pimp and that kind of thing, but sometimes it's a family member who has a substance use disorder, and they're trying to feed that, and they end up selling their family members to support that. So if that's going on in a home, that child could be vulnerable. So it's a pretty broad
Yeah.
range of clientele.
Yeah. It's almost so overwhelmingly shocking just to hear that.
Yeah.
And I wonder, just on a human level, how you keep your balance hearing story after story like that.
They promote self-care, taking time to go for a walk. The Hope Project is very grounded in God.
Yeah.
It's a faith-based organization. It's presented to the girls and the women, but it's not required.
Yes.
And we've got some who absolutely want nothing to do with it. But it's still, we pray in, we pray out. That's there.
Yes. Is most of what your work, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I know you were saying, how do I keep that balance? Bob helps me keep that balance, having Mr. Bob at home is, because I'll come home and he doesn't push with what I've done. It's not a tell me about your day, because then I would have to rehash confidentially, of course. Names are never disclosed, or details, that kind of thing. But I can say it was a really hard day, or if I need to, he'll listen to it. So
Is
that
the
helps.
primary recovery aspect things about rehab, for instance, and counseling? What are you doing to help a person who's been trafficked?
I think, and we have different counselors, different therapists in our office, and we all have a little bit of a different approach. But overall, it's trauma-based.
Okay.
We all come from that place of trying to help them heal. It's not shove it down, choose a new behavior. It's okay. Let's talk about that. It's lodged in your body somewhere. Let's talk. Let's get it out. But now that that's out, what are we going to fill that with? And that's where we try to come in with prayer and the introduction of the Holy Spirit. And so we're trying to bring healing not just, okay, let's move forward, because sometimes you can't move forward when your body is so gripped by trauma. So I have found that a lot of the girls and the women see me as a mom figure, which I love. I love that I'm a mom, because a lot of them have not had, I don't want to say they haven't had good moms. They've had moms who have really had challenges and have really struggled to be good moms. I've had one woman who she just needed to be held.
Yeah.
40 minutes I sat there and just, not hand on her arm, but like full on she just needed to be held.
Yeah.
And sobbed, and, sometimes that's my role.
Yeah. There's a great book that's been out, just sort of been revived in the last year or so because of COVID, because of people's experience with trauma is sort of widespread now. It's the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and I've been reading it, and I've just been finding it to be very helpful. And when you're talking about hugging, one of the things that people in trauma don't have is they can't regulate themselves. They experience these traumas over and over again, and there's nothing there to help them. And one of the key aspects of this physical touch, and when people have been traumatized through being sexually trafficked, physical touches has also this overtone that's just also traumatic. So it's really difficult to regulate those kinds of things. But at the same time, it can be done. I'm sure you have hard stories. I'm sure you have, helpful, wonderful stories in your ministry. Yeah.
I mean, it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
One day a client brought in her guinea pig, and we sat on the floor and we talked and played with the guinea pig.
Yeah.
So you let them be kids. You let them, the ones in their 30s, if they need to be a kid, let them be a kid for an hour. But that doesn't happen if you can't establish trust, if you can't get that relationship in place.
Yeah. It's interesting listening to you guys. We've spent some time together, and I've always found your stories to be really compelling. But in today, one of the things that I'm just thinking about is that your spiritual stories get worked out into the physical world in really, really concrete ways. So a lot of people, they have a spiritual life and it's all up in their head. And other people have spiritual lives where there's not a lot of things happening, but it seems like that's just a natural thing. Would you say that, Bob, or how would you, because you've had a long ministry life, and I don't know how you would express that, your own spiritual life, and just wondered.
I would agree with that, and I think times in this church where we've had men's ministry, where we've sat in classes and talked about things like what we've been talking about today, and also how can we grow as Christians in this world and make a difference. And several years ago, when I first decided to want to work with the children, I was thinking, let's put this into practice and do something. And so having a male role model in the children's wing, I think, is very important.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main reasons why I did that. So it's putting things that you learn in a classroom or talk to guys about that you're actually now doing something about it.
Yeah. I guess I have the same question for you, Lisa. How would you configure your spiritual life? Is it one where you think and do things in the world, or is it different than that?
I'm a little impulsive.
Oh yeah.
There's not a lot of thinking.
You know that she's impulsive?
Yes, she is.
I wouldn't have struck me that you're impulsive. So describe what you mean by that.
Well, marrying him.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of came
That's
out of
the standard of impulsiveness, isn't
that
it?
kind of came out of the blue, but we just went with it. But there have been times when we've looked at each other, across the garden, going, "How did this happen? Why did this happen?"
Yeah.
But it works. That was a little impulsive. But with like with clients, my big thing there is boundaries, because I meet someone and I just want to adopt them. I want to bring them home. I
Yeah.
want to just, can't we just? And they're like, no, we can't.
Yeah. High compassion, would you say?
Yeah.
In your life, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to my dad, really. I've always seen him just as an unpretentious, just not putting on airs, just he is who he is, and he just wants to be kind to everyone. He's shared with me that he's felt a little intimidated or felt less than some people, but those things have all worked themselves out, and he just continues to be who he is. And I think that's what I try to bring to whatever I'm doing, is I'm just going to be who I am, which is a very different person from who I was back in the day at Forest Park.
Yeah.
I didn't have this level of compassion as a teenager, as a young adult, even into my 30s. I just didn't. 40s. This is a kind of a thing that has developed. I was very self-centered, very, I don't know, just that's who I was. And I think when I came back, that expectation was that was who I still was. So it's been a little shift, I think, to be able to be who I am now,
Yeah.
which, I just want to take care of people.
Yeah. Well, I have found, coming back to Muskegon, being absent for 40 years and then coming back, in a way that is unlike other places where I've moved to, like we were in Minnesota for a couple of years. Coming to Muskegon, I was confronted immediately with my past.
Yeah.
Like, here's what I used to be. And I found it actually quite encouraging because, God has done, a work in my life. And I have adjectives I would use about myself from my past. And I still struggle. I would say some things about myself that are really a challenge. But I'd also look at my children and see the ways in which they've grown and realize that Marcia and I have, had a good life led by the Lord, and it's built into them aspects that aren't reflective of the worst parts of me. And, I see Dale and his impact in your life, and I think that there's something really beautiful about seeing a father have that kind of impact, a long-lasting impact in your life, even if you were struggling with what we all struggled in our 20s, 30s, and 40s with. And truth be told, a lot of us are still struggling with the same things, but we also experience the blessing of the Lord in our life. So.
The thing about on Facebook, when somebody posts a need or whatever, and you type in the little prayer hands or
Yeah.
I'll jump on there and do that. And that I get convicted about that sometimes, because it's like, do I really? Sometimes at the end of the day, I'll have to say, I don't even remember what I said I would pray for, but God, I'm lifting up whatever those little emojis were for. And I just feel horrible about that. And I feel like doing something, not that praying for somebody isn't something, but actually doing something. The thing about we're the hands and feet of Christ, I feel like I'm the arms, and I need to use that, to hold, to reach out to something. That's important to me.
I think that one of the aspects of the body of Christ is that the body of Christ allows you to do those things. It's not, you couldn't go down, like even across the street, knock on the door and say, hey, I want to do something nice for you. They might not even know why you're talking to them. So you have to build a relationship with people, and then it's kind of a love, it's a community of love where people allow each other to help each other at the same time, kind of pressing in. And I think you guys are great at that. I think you both do things that are, they're challenging for people in a good way. We look at Bob Johnson, we look at Lisa Wright and go, I think I could be doing something. I could be doing more. I could be doing something. It's funny that you're saying that you're impulsive. I would never have thought that you were impulsive.
In some things.
In some things.
Some things, yeah.
I would have used compassion, but what were you going to say?
Lisa has a great imagination. So there are many times where we'll be just doing something around the house. Or, what do you think about if let me take you over here. I want to show you. There'll be different things, and that's what I've loved about her. And it's helped me step up and out of my comfort zone to say, okay, yeah, look, buying this house next door, I don't know if we could, okay. And that led to other things, the ministries, and so there's been a lot of times when what she has in her mind gets translated into doing, and it's been a blessing to others.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you think powered you to sell everything and go work for the Jesus people for you? That seems pretty imaginative and convictional. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people that have done anything even remotely like that.
I have to admit, for 1 year, I enjoyed the fact that I was debt-free. But after that, it has not been quite that way.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, any savings have been plowed into a house next door, and refurbishing costs and those kind of things, which are all good.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that 1 year of debt-freeness.
Not having to worry about all that stuff.
Right. And I just owned what I had in one room and a storage locker here in Muskegon.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it was a big step. And I thought I was going to live there many more years. I thought I'd still be there. But things changed.
I remember when we were first married, that's a long time ago, we moved to Chicago, and we fit all of our belongings in the smallest U-Haul truck you could rent. And it was packed from back to front, top to bottom. But that's not what we have now. We have a lot more than that. And I remember working with some older folks and helping them to move from one house to the other. And the other one was a great saint in the Lord, and we were just moving all that stuff. This is in the days when I did moving stuff for people. And she just said, the stuff of this life. And I've never forgotten that. That's just that one phrase, not even a sentence. And what it said to me was that, everybody kind of accrues stuff in their life, and there's a point at which you have to be a good steward, and there's a point at which it just feels like it can just weigh you down, Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like you've had kind of both experiences of sort of letting everything go and also kind of coming back in and doing good works for the Lord with your resources.
For sure.
Yeah.
Bob had a friend that he had talked about that he had been helping for, over the years. I think maybe he lived in your basement for a while, or but had been homeless for about 10 years. And Bob would reach out and help him in different ways. And when I moved back, I got to meet him.
Yeah.
And something that kind of shifted, I think, in both of us. It was his birthday, and we had taken him out for dinner for his birthday, but he was living in a tent in the woods, and it was a very cold, rainy night that night, and we just kind of had this very quick, impulsive conversation. It's like, we can't let him go back out in the woods. We have a roof. What can we do? And I think we blew up an air mattress, and he slept on our living room floor.
Yeah.
That night. And that just kind of planted this seed of what can we do? What resources do we have? How can we help him? And that launched a year-long campaign, I guess, to just help him help himself, help him feel like he was worth seeing.
Yes.
and that has taken a really wonderful
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
And
So we're a mobile home owner now.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we purchased a small, modest mobile home for him to be in, and but all the while working on getting the support that he didn't understand how to make all that happen, how to get the support that he needed, and so it just wasn't.
Yeah.
And so we walked alongside him and got those things in place a year later. And when he got his first check, he handed it right back to me. He said, "This is yours. You've done so much for me." And of course, thank you, but no,
Yes.
this is yours. But we've just seen such a change in him. He's still ornery at times. He's still who he is at the core.
Yeah.
But he was able to buy an old vehicle.
Yeah.
He gets himself around. He has dignity, and that's been so cool to
Yeah.
see someone go from
I-
such a lack to
just
having that.
what you're saying, I remember there's this pastor down in the South, Andy Stanley, and he says, "Do for one what you can't do for all.
Yeah.
Do for one what you can't do for all." And I think I was quoting Bob Pierce, the founder of World Vision. He says, "Don't fail to do something, even if it's just things are just overwhelming." So sometimes we look at things and we don't want to do anything because it just feels like it's not going to matter.
Right.
And yet it does matter to that one person, doesn't it?
Well, and Forest Park really rallied
Yeah.
around us helping him, because I would post things on the women's Facebook page, or our small group really rallied around him, and items started showing up, pieces of furniture showed up, how can we help? So it really, I think, inspired some people to think, what can we do?
Yeah.
So it was definitely a group effort here at Forest Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great ministry, and could be something to adopt a homeless person.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it, and it needs to be a long-term commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of rewards for that person.
Well, maybe we should have another podcast where you can outline how to adopt a homeless person, because I bet you there's not a lot of people that have any guidelines for that and wouldn't know. I think that even just trying to think through that would be overwhelming to people. So that just sounds like an interesting thing for us to follow up on. But and I think that one of the harder things about COVID is that it's been our life has been less embodied by design. Like we've been apart from each other. We've done that, actually, many people out of love and care and concern. And there's been fear, but one of the things that I think has been interesting is for us to be able to start coming back and having these kinds of conversations about what embodied ministry, person on person, can look like, and maybe in a renewed way. Because when you haven't been able to do it, all of a sudden you realize what you're missing when you weren't able to minister in the ways that God had called you to in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyways, it's very interesting. You guys are very interesting people. I think we're all set. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? I've really
Thanks for
enjoyed our
bringing
time.
that up, because
Yeah.
that's been a big part of our
Yeah.
4 years together.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where's the mobile home at?
It's on Timberline off of
Out River
what's
Road.
River Road.
Is it in a mobile
Mobile home
park?
park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah. But I guess the thing that I really want to emphasize, though, before we go, is that this isn't Bob and Lisa saying, "Hey, what can we do?" This
Right.
is, I really, really, truly feel that God has put this in our hearts and has blessed us with the resources and the desire.
And we
And-
responded.
Yeah, and we've responded. We haven't gone, no, you can't be saying that. So we want to make sure that to God be the glory.
Exactly.
It's not us. We love that. This is probably the biggest connection that we have as a couple. As a couple is that we enjoy doing this. We feel energized by doing
Yeah.
this because we feel like God put it in our hearts.
Yes.
So it's exciting
Yeah.
to act on that,
Yeah.
to feel like we're doing what He wants us to do,
Yeah.
but it's not us. It's
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Well, and I think it does combine a lot of your strongest qualities as followers of Christ. But I think that if you were to rewind the tape to, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you might have it would never even occur to you. And so some of it is just who you are as people. And some of it is, a lot of it is the conviction that comes from the Lord. So,
Yep. I know we're way over, but
no, that's okay.
Yesterday, we again at Hope Project, we pray a lot there. We have a
Yeah.
lot of discussions about things, and yesterday it came up my gratitude for the pain and the shame that I have experienced.
Right.
And I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but it's, there have been some pretty ugly times. And times standing in the grocery store looking at orange juice or a loaf of bread and wondering which one I can get. So I've been at that financial point. And I don't think I would have the heart, I wouldn't have the compassion for the people that I'm wanting to help now if I hadn't been in that position. It's hard to imagine what that feels like unless you're there, I think.
Yeah.
So in that moment, did I thank God for that? No.
Yeah.
We were having other words. But today I look back and I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for the things that I was involved in that caused me shame then and shame today, but that lets me sit with those women and not judge.
Yes.
And if I hadn't gone through that, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful to God for allowing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that deprivation and suffering is one of the foundations for what moves us into ministry. Our own deprivation, our own suffering. And, on Sunday I was just sharing about the way in which you can get in a room of, 10 people and 2 or 3 people have had deprivation and suffering to the extent that you're talking about and the extent that I was talking about, whether they didn't have enough to eat for an extended period of time or something else like that. And, when you experience it, you see it more readily out in the world, and you don't want people to have to experience that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think, not to make light of your story right there, is that I probably would have chosen to look at the donut aisle instead of bread.
It's all about the donuts.
I'm with you on that one. Yeah, donuts overall. Yeah. Or
This is how I keep my balance.
Punchkis yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I can't have those now.
Yeah, you can't because it's Lent, I suppose. So I'm going to call it a day here. So thanks, guys, for the time. It's just very interesting.